A story title, The Fall of Alhaji Sani Dogo. The Empire of Influence. Alhaji Sani Dogo was a man of power. From the ancient city of Kano to the political corridors of Abuja, his name opened doors and silenced opposition. He made his billions through real estate, transport logistics, and oil deals, some legitimate, many not. Traditional rulers sang his praises. Politicians sought his endorsements. He was a benefactor, a kingmaker, a self-styled savior of the North. But behind closed doors, Alhaji Sani was a man ruled by his appetites. He had 3 wives and 10 children, but that did not quench his thirst. He was known among the elite for his lavish parties, his fondness for younger girls, and his uncanny ability to make scandals disappear. The silent beauty. In the golden halls of an Abuja fundraiser, hosted in honor of a senatorial campaign he bankrolled, Alhaji Sani saw her. Zainabu. She was not dancing like the others. Not mingling. She stood near the corner, dressed modestly but with an air of mystery. Her large, sad eyes met his briefly before turning away. That was enough. Alhaji was intrigued. He asked a steward who she was. Nobody seemed to know. A challenge. He sent his aide to invite her to his table. She declined. That night, he couldn't sleep. He told his driver to find her. Within 2 days, she was located in Kaduna, living with her aunt. An orphan, recently withdrawn from university due to financial hardship. Vulnerable. Perfect. He sent gifts. Money. Promises of scholarship, luxury, a future. She never asked for any of it. The last room. A week later, they arranged to meet discreetly at a boutique hotel in Kaduna. Room 207. The air in the room was thick with the scent of imported cologne and secrets. Alhaji Sani Dogo sat on the edge of the bed, his white kaftan freshly pressed, his gold wristwatch catching the light from the chandelier. On the polished table beside him sat a gift box, a designer handbag, cash neatly stacked in a brown envelope, and a phone with his number already saved. He had rehearsed what he would say. Not that it mattered. Women never turned him down, not when the full weight of his wealth pressed down like this. But when Zainabu entered, everything shifted. She wore a simple lilac hijab and a long flowing gown. Her eyes did not flicker with excitement, nor fear, only resignation. She sat, not on the bed, but on the single armchair by the window, her hands folded politely in her lap. "You look more beautiful than I remembered," Alhaji said, offering a warm smile that had disarmed senators and CEOs. "Thank you, sir," she replied, voice calm, distant. He gestured to the gift box. "For you. Just a token. I didn't come for gifts." He blinked, momentarily thrown off balance. "Then why are you here?" She turned to the window, watching the late afternoon sun stretch over the rooftops of Kaduna. "To understand," she said. "Why someone like you, a man with everything, would chase a girl like me." Alhaji chuckled, masking discomfort. "Because you are rare. Because you are untouched by this world. I could give you the life you deserve." Zainabu turned back to him, slowly. "Or the life you think I deserve." Silence. Something about her voice, her stillness, unnerved him. This was not the usual dance. No flirtation, no gratitude, no fear. Just questions. "Do you think I haven't heard what they say about you?" she continued softly. "Do you think I don't know what happens to the girls who come to these rooms?" Alhaji's face tightened. "Those are rumors. Lies spread by the jealous." "Maybe," she said. "But even lies have roots." He stood then, crossing the room with the careful, deliberate movements of a man used to power. He reached out, as if to lift her chin, but she flinched, barely, but enough. That tiny motion shattered the illusion. He stepped back. "You think I'm a monster?" She shook her head. I think you're a man who was never told no. The silence between them grew heavy. Outside, the call to prayer echoed from a nearby mosque. Zainabu stood. I won't take your money. And I won't return. Alhaji watched her walk to the door, her presence both ghostly and defiant. As she opened it, she looked back once. You have built empires, Alhaji. But you are poor in the one thing that matters. He didn't ask what. He already knew. The door closed gently behind her. For the first time in years, Alhaji Sani Dogo felt a crack, not in his wealth, nor his influence, but in his soul. He sat alone in room 207 as the sun dipped below the horizon. And for the first time in a long while, he felt small. Shadows on the marble. The silence of room 207 clung to Alhaji Sani Dogo like a second skin. He didn't leave immediately. He sat still for hours, the unopened gift box untouched on the table, the envelope of cash now meaningless. The powerful man who had bent the wheels of governors and amirs was alone with a thing he had avoided his whole life. Reflection. Zainabu's words echoed in his mind, each syllable a stone thrown at the polished glass of his ego. You are poor in the one thing that matters. What was it? Dignity. Conscience. Love. He didn't know. But he knew this, she had seen through him. Not as the revered Alhaji Dogo, the billionaire, the kingmaker, but as a man bloated with excess and rot. And she walked away. Not because she couldn't be bought, but because she refused to be sold. He didn't sleep that night. The next morning, back in his mansion in Asekoro, the marble floors felt colder than usual. His third wife, Binta, greeted him with her usual perfunctory kiss. The children played in the distance, unaware that something in their father had shifted. His personal assistant, Kabru, came in with a folder full of contracts and reports. There's an issue with the port logistics deal in Rivers State, Kabru began. Alhaji waved him off. Cancel the meeting. All of them. Kabru paused, surprised. Even the minister's dinner. All of them, Alhaji repeated, voice low. The aide left quickly, confused but obedient. Alhaji poured himself tea, sat on the balcony overlooking the city, and watched the hawk circle in the distance. The money felt different in his hands now, less like power, more like chains. Days turned to weeks. Rumors began to swirl in Abuja. Alhaji Sani Dogo had grown reclusive. He turned down business ventures. A few noticed he had stopped attending political fundraisers. He was rarely seen at his usual haunts. His rivals smelled weakness. One former protege, now a rising senator, began pushing for a corruption probe into Dogo's oil farm. Journalists dug deeper into his past. Stories began to leak, old scandals, secret accounts, young girls from forgotten towns. Alhaji tried to fight back. He bribed editors, threatened whistleblowers. But the tide was turning. The same men who once kissed his ring now whispered of cleaning up the old guard. But it wasn't the headlines that broke him. It was a phone call. One rainy afternoon, he received a call from a university in Zaria. A female student had listed him as a sponsor on her reinstatement form. Her name, Zainabu Aliyu. He asked quietly, "Is she well?" "She's brilliant," said the administrator. "Top of her class." "She refused our scholarship offer," said someone else had already paid her fees anonymously. Alhaji ended the call and stared at his trembling hands. She had taken nothing from him. Yet she had taken everything. The mosque with no name. It was a small mosque on the outskirts of Kaduna, nestled between weathered shops and rusting corrugated roofs, a place with no marble, no grand minarets, no signboard announcing its name. It was simply known to locals as the mosque with no name. Alhaji Sani Dogo began going there on Fridays, quietly, without his usual motorcade. He wore simple clothes. No cap embroidered in gold thread. No expensive perfume. Just a plain white jalabia and a prayer mat tucked under his arm. The Imam, an aging man with a limp and eyes that had seen war, noticed him the first time but said nothing. So did the boys who sold roasted corn by the gate. They whispered, recognizing the once untouchable magnate, but said little. He prayed, kept his head low, and left without ceremony. Every week, he came again. Not for absolution, he wasn't sure he deserved that. But for silence. For humility. For answers. One evening, after Maghrib prayer, the Imam approached him. "You are seeking something," he said. Alhaji nodded. "Peace?" the Imam asked. "Forgiveness," Alhaji replied. The Imam looked at him deeply. "Forgiveness comes from Allah. But peace comes when a man faces the things he buried." Alhaji's eyes welled up, but he only nodded again. The next morning, he instructed Kabru to prepare a legal file. "List all the girls we paid off," he said quietly. "Everyone. I want to set up a fund. For therapy. For education. No names. No publicity. Just make it right." Kabru stared, stunned. "Sir, that could bring more attention." "Let it," Alhaji said. It was the beginning of his reckoning. Weeks later. The headlines blared again. Former tycoon establishes quiet reparations trust. Some praised him. Most scoffed, assuming it was a ploy to salvage his reputation. But Alhaji didn't respond. He gave no interviews. He refused all political invitations. He stopped meddling in government. He downsized. Sold off his third mansion. Sent 2 of his children abroad under assumed names to escape the fallout. His second wife divorced him. He didn't contest it. He didn't fight. But he searched for peace, for that invisible thing Zainabu had seen missing in him. One morning, as he sat at the mosque steps with a bowl of dates to share with beggars, a girl in a faded hijab approached. She looked about 19, her eyes cautious. "You're the man who helped my sister get back to school," she said. "Zainabu." Alhaji's heart stopped. "How is she?" The girl smiled faintly. "Married now. Lives in Gum. She told me to tell you, she prays for you." Alhaji closed his eyes. For the first time in a very long time, he smiled, not the smile of a man admired, feared, or envied, but the soft, tired smile of a man learning how to live with his ghost. The last influence. Rain fell steadily over Abuja, a slow, unhurried rhythm that washed the city in grey. In his reduced but still dignified residence in Jobi, Alhaji Sani Dogo sat on a worn leather chair, listening to the patter of rain and the occasional chirp of birds taking shelter under the eaves. He was thinner now. Quieter. A shadow of the lion he once was, but not a ghost. No longer hollow. One of his sons, Farouk, returned from London that month. Once estranged and ashamed of his father's scandals, Farouk had kept his distance during the storm. But something had changed in his voice over recent calls. A cautious respect had crept back in. "Baba," Farouk said one morning over tea, "people still talk about you. But not the way they used to." Sani arched a brow. "Let them talk." "No," Farouk said, leaning forward. "They say you've become a different man. The girls you helped, the mosque, the fund. Baba, they say it's real." Alhaji said nothing. "You used to influence elections," Farouk continued. "Now you're influencing hearts." That made Alhaji pause. He had spent decades shaping governors, funding puppets, buying silence. But none of it remained. Power had dissolved in scandal. Money had become weight. Only this unexpected legacy seemed to hold. That same week, a reporter requested a private interview. An opportunity to tell his side of the story. The younger Alhaji would have flown to the studio with tailored answers and veiled threats. But now, He declined. Instead, he wrote a letter. A long, handwritten message, which he submitted anonymously to a small, independent northern paper. It read, "I was a man who believed power could erase shame. That money could build memory and silence regret. But I was wrong. I took more than I gave. I damaged what I could not control. I mistook silence for consent, and gratitude for love. To those I hurt, I will never ask for your forgiveness, but I will work the rest of my life to deserve it. And to the young, especially the poor, the quiet, the ones like Zainabu, may you grow in a world where men like I once was hold no dominion over your dreams." The article went viral. Not because of the name, it was unsigned, but because of the truth. No one in power acknowledged it. But the people did. Epilogue, Kano, 2 years later. An unassuming man in his 60s walked through the old quarters of Kano during Ramadan. He gave out food to strangers, paid for surgeries at local clinics, prayed side by side with apprentices and beggars. He lived alone now, in a modest bungalow near the edge of the city. He no longer answered to Alhaji. The name had weight, and he was learning how to live light. They called him Malam Sani. He never saw the spotlight again. But sometimes, in the women's education fund he built, in the clinic he sponsored anonymously, or in the small smile of a child in a madrasa, his final influence lived on. A quiet fall. A louder redemption. The end.